There's really only one goal in investing: buy low, sell high. I took a personal finance class because in my view of the world and my decision making was the woman takes care of the money. My mom took care of the money. But by the end of that one term, just taking personal finance, I had understood you don't have to go down the path my parents went, that you could make better decisions if you just understood. And if you had the knowledge, then you could make better choices, and from better choices, you can have a better life. I'll tell you, I've been in a lot of organizations and teachers don't know this. Doctors don't know this. CEOs don't know this. We've been taught to save our whole lives. What do you mean you don't get rich by saving? Because if you just save, the value erodes. But if you set money aside, which we often call savings, then we put it to work. What do we call it when we put money to work? Investing.
What about people who are already in debt?
Yeah.
How can you help them start to get control and get out of debt? Because I feel there's got to be a lot of people out there at this point, they're already there.
In that 1 year, making $42,000 as my base salary, I paid off the $36,000 in debt. Now, how does someone do that?
And live. So we are joined here today by Dr. Crystal Gifford. Dr. Gifford is an economist and educator and a founder of the EdgeTech Global, a company focused on helping schools and organizations make better decisions through innovative curriculum and decision intelligence tools. I am excited to learn about that. With more than 25 years of experience teaching finance and economics, she's worked across high schools, universities, and professional organizations to translate complex ideas into practical systems that improve outcomes. So welcome, Crystal.
Thank you, Susan. It's great to be here.
One of the reasons that I asked Crystal to be on is that a lot of people were asking me about finances. And I said, okay, I need to bring someone on who's in my community, who has a very big spiritual presence, spiritual practice, lives her life very consciously, but teaches people about finance and economics. So tell us, how did you get on this path?
I got on this path, Susan, when I was 14, and I didn't know I was headed for this path. But my father, who was a pastor, lost his job, and we had to move in the basement of the church in order to keep the church alive, and we rented out our home. And that was how we accommodated not having money. And I was really embarrassed. I was 14. I acted up. I was a brat, like a 14-year-old would be. And I remember it making an impact on me. And at the time, I just shrunk away. But as I stepped into career and I was a young mom and later on, and then I was going to college and I was going to get married. And I thought, I don't want to have a life where I have to move my kids in the basement of a church. Like, that was important for me. I took a personal finance class because in my view of the world and my decision making was the woman takes care of the money. My mom took care of the money. My dad made most of it. My mom took care of it. So I thought, oh, I better know how. And in the decision to know how, I took a personal finance class, and I had an old professor, Mr. Ruby, and what a lovely name to teach finance, isn't it? I was like, yes, I want to learn from this guy. He was so fascinating. And by the end of that one term, just taking personal finance, I had understood you don't have to go down the path my parents went, that you could make better decisions if you just understood. And if you had the knowledge, then you could make better choices, and from better choices, you can have a better life. And then I could save myself and my kids from ever having to live in the basement of a church. That was the logic at 14.
At 14. But then how old were you when you took the finance class?
I was 19.
You were 19 from that. And you were right. This personal finance class should be taught in every high school.
Yes,
absolutely.
absolutely.
Managing your finances, nobody teaches you that. Taking statistics in college doesn't teach you that. Taking algebra and geometry in high school doesn't teach you that. And it is so important because we need to know how to survive, how to manage our money, especially in the credit card debt world, that everyone just puts things on credit card, not thinking that they have to pay the interest on that and that it actually is hurting them financially.
Yeah, and it's the lack of knowledge, but it's also the fear of even stepping into the knowledge, because financial anything, economics anything, automatically has a cloud over it. And like, oh, this is going to be hard. This is going to be complicated. And no shade on the people who've been teaching it, because we're all doing our best. But I think in the past, we've taught it like, do these formulas, do this thing. And it's 4 clicks separate from the human. And there's a real life we're living. And I'll tell you, I've been in a lot of organizations and teachers don't know this most of the time. Doctors don't know this. CEOs don't know this. This is not like, oh, you should just know it. But yet there is shame around not knowing. And then because you don't know what to do and then you didn't take those actions, at some point you just go down the road and you're a fully formed adult, except you don't know a thing about money. And now it feels too late to ask.
Yeah. So how can we help the people that are at that spot? What tips or tricks, where can we begin? Because that's what I feel is, especially women, it's interesting that your mom took care of the money, because a lot of the times that isn't the case. So we don't learn from our parents, especially being the girl. No one teaches you about finance. I was lucky. My dad was in finance, so he taught me about finance, but I still struggled to grab it. So that when I came into having my own money, it scared me.
It's amazing how many people I've worked with who have resources, but they're still afraid.
Yeah.
So you have the different levels of wealth knowledge and also wealth access. And those who don't have access and they don't have knowledge, they just see it as a mystery. And maybe they fight for income or they fight to make a little bit more money, but they really don't know how to make a better life from that. But the one that surprises most people is those who already have money. And somehow they got it. Maybe they were good at business. They were great at sales. They inherited it. They hit the lottery. There's so many ways people could come into money. Often what I've seen is entrepreneurs, businesses who've come into it, or they've just been really great at their craft. Again, it's that I'm good at sales or I'm good at business, so therefore I should. And the word should, if we could just pull that out and stop shoulding all over ourselves with money and say, you know what, I deserve to know this, and it is in my capacity to know this. The thing that helped me understand people the most was when I really came to terms with my own shadow in the kitchen. Because for me, I look at a kitchen and I'm supposed to be responsible to form a meal out of whatever, and I feel lost. I feel freaked out. Please don't make me do this. I can't do it. And it's very scary. And it like almost a cloud, like a shadow comes over me. Even at the grocery store, it's like, wow, what's going on? And I didn't understand the terminology for this, but someone described to me one day that that's anxiety, Crystal. That feeling that you're feeling when you walk in the store and it's overwhelming and everything gets big and you're shrinking, that's anxiety. And I had never understood that I experienced it. And that day I began to understand what people feel. It's not like just, come on, let's just do it, Susan, let's just do your money. It's like, oh, they're literally backing down into it. They become tiny, in a sense. And then the world gets bigger. And all of a sudden, tiny little me is up against this giant financial statement or something. And having that gave me more empathy, and I think made me a better teacher to really understand the come from.
That is an amazing description of anxiety, because I too have felt, oh, I don't have anxiety. And then someone explained something to me and it hit me that, wait a second, those feelings, that's anxiety.
Yeah.
From going to an event by myself. Like, I'm a social person, but I still get a little social anxiety showing up into a room of complete strangers by myself. And I never thought I had anxiety.
Exactly. Yeah. So I think the first thing people have to do is acknowledge we're not here to be victims and say, oh, I have anxiety now, and to let it be a crutch or something that holds us down, but to go, oh, everyone has anxiety about something. Yeah. And mine just happens to be the kitchen. Someone else's happens to be money. And so the first step is really just to say, okay, this feels scary and I'm still able to do it. I still choose to do it. And again, it all comes down to decisions, right? Every decision we make, including choosing to be scared, can lead us toward the ability to step in. And it's so funny when someone comes in and they're like, no, Crystal, cooking is a recipe. It's science. It's not art. And I'm like, what? Oh yeah, this recipe has this ingredients and you just follow those instructions. And I was like, wow, it worked. I actually made something that was delicious. Now, every time I step in the kitchen, I still feel the same way, and I still don't want to be responsible for that. But every now and then I will do that, because guess what? Crystal has to eat. So every now and then, if I can just encourage someone to step in the kitchen with me, let's look at your numbers. I promise you, it's not as painful as it seems. The anxiety or fear of something is almost always bigger than the actual pain of doing it itself.
So the first step is that acknowledgement.
Yeah. Let yourself feel scared. It's okay.
Yeah.
It doesn't make you wrong or dirty or stupid or any of those whatever judgments that you might put on yourself. It doesn't make you any of those because you don't know. It makes you unknowledgeable. That's it. We like the word ignorance. Some people are offended by that, but I love it. Ignorance just means I'm not responsible for that yet because I don't know it. So the only way I can become responsible for that is to then learn it, and then I can take action and make the right choices, whatever choice might work for me.
So it's that first step is I'm anxious about this, but I am capable. I am capable is such a huge thing, because that's where people fail, is they feel they're not capable.
Have you noticed a trend how our gifted students are almost always struggling in school? So you have programs for the kids.
Pressure? What is it?
It's a brain wiring. They call this neurodivergence these days. You've probably heard that term.
Yes.
And
explain what that is.
Those neurodivergence is when your brain functions or operates differently than the norm. Well, what's the norm? The norm is whatever the most people do. Right. If we think of way back, you said they don't teach it in statistics. You know what we taught? A bell curve. A bell curve tells us that there's a norm right in the middle, that this is what represents most people. Well, up until the last generation, there was a norm. There's an 80% or so of people do it this way. And neurodivergence means your brain does it differently. Now we're seeing increases in neurodivergence in generations now. So now the traditional, which captured 80% of the people, and then we can go to the outliers, maybe 10% are on the lower end and the other 10% are on the higher end. We have programs for the lower. But where are the programs for the gifted? So now we're beginning that in education, but everyone who's already out in the world who was gifted and didn't have these programs for you, the traditional way doesn't make sense. So even when you go to try to learn, it's like a wall, and it's like, I'm trying, but it just doesn't work. And that's because they often need variety of learning ways and methods and trials, and just trying to push it in your brain is not sufficient.
Yeah.
And it never has been really, but now with the increase in neurodivergence in the world, we're getting more and more accommodations for that and acknowledgement. Like, hey, maybe I could do this if we tweak the way we do it.
Yeah, I think that is really important, because I've always was curious about school and learning, and that there's one way. You have to study, you have to memorize, and then you have to repeat it in a test. And the thing is, some people are audio learners, some people are video learners, some people are like, who knows, there's so many different types of learning. And I actually said that to my daughter recently. You have to figure out what your style of learning is. And if you're going to go to college, let's find a program that is in the style that you like to learn. You may be hands-on. So going to school and studying something that you're reading textbooks all the time and writing papers isn't going to be right for someone that wants, maybe they need to go into marketing.
Right.
Where it's more hands-on experience and experiential, and you're creating, opposed to going to school to be a lawyer where you're reading cases and writing judgments and writing papers. So it's the learning style is important. And I'm really glad to hear that this neurodivergence is bringing awareness that there's a need to teach people in the way that their brain can comprehend.
Yeah, and it's actually gotten more complicated than just one other way. So the thing is, we have this idea, okay, everybody learns this way. Okay, just kidding. We got these other people. Not everyone learns this way. And now that's creeping in. It's not the 10% anymore. If you would run statistics, I wouldn't be surprised to find that neurodivergence numbers are increasing with every new birth. Like, it's just, I think it's not changing. It might be part of our evolution, and we're waking up as a humanity. So perhaps we're just opening to that part of our brains. That we used to have a story that, oh, the human only uses 10% of their brain capacity. Not true exactly in that form, but that was what we believed. Well, now these neurodivergents are opening and using more of the brain, more capacity, actually actively using at any given time more of the brain. Well, I believe that's partly evolution, partly acknowledgement. Because as soon as we can name a thing, we can access a thing. We understand this with color. If you study back to historical tribes, they were able to see colors once they named the color. Imagine what that means for us in learning and in growing and in decision making. I'm supposed to make a decision about X, but I don't really understand X, and I can't give it a name. And if I haven't given it language, I haven't been able to put context or structure around it to be able to make a choice. So if I'm trying to learn about money, I have to first find a way to give it a name. And that's why you want to start with, like, hey, let's look at a vocabulary. It's like a whole new language when you get to econ. Yeah, instead we're saying, no, get it. Where's the basis to say, hey, there's a language here. Let's start there.
Right.
What if you could say hello in economics?
In economics, yeah.
Right?
What would that be?
And what would that be? That would be like the word trade-offs. It would be like, oh, hello. if I want to have tea right now, I'm probably not going to be able to drink coffee at the same time. Now I could have both and I could alternate between them, which is often a neurodivergent thing to have 2 or 3 or 4 drinks, right? But right now, if I want to pick up the tea and I want to have a drink, I'm having a drink of tea. I couldn't also, well, I could with spills maybe, but it would be very difficult to also drink the coffee at the same time. So as we shift between learning styles, understanding with all of this new learning that it may not be one style. You might need to actually kinesthetically write it down and use your pen when it's math, but you need to visually see it when it's language, or vice versa. So accepting that there are not only different learning styles, but that we all have multiple learning styles
within ourselves
based on what we're trying to acknowledge and whether we are super into it. Think about the last book you read that you loved and you just couldn't put it down. And maybe everybody else is, that's so nerdy or that's so whatever. And you're like, I love it. Maybe it was on quilting and you love quilting. I would not be interested in that book, but you were. So what it would take for me to learn that book would be different than what it would take for you because you love it. Same, like when I get a spreadsheet, I get excited. Like I feel like a happy dog, like ready to wag my tail, like spreadsheets. We can talk, we can prove it. We can do data. We can show things and we can get the numbers and know if our decisions are right. And I get that excited about spreadsheets, but you put me in the kitchen and I'm terrified. And so when someone sees my excitement about spreadsheets, rather than being like feeling less than, how about you go, oh, thank God someone loves spreadsheets. So when I need spreadsheets, I can come to you.
All right. So let's dig into that. Let's think about people that are around our age and they still don't get finance. How can we help them? How can you help them? What tools can we give them to start opening these doors, to get rid of the anxiety and the fear and start to actually being able to manage their financial health?
You need to make a date with your money. That's the first thing. Like we're adults, we date. Some of us opt out, some of us go in, some of us already found our person. But even if we have a person, we go on dates. And with our friends, we go on dates. And with our kids, we go on dates. We create space and time to get to know that person. That's all that a date really is let me have some fun while I get to know you. You can make dates with your money. It's really a fun thing to do when you start treating your money like it's an entity almost that's there to support you. And
are you taking it to dinner? Are you having drinks?
Yes, all of this. So
because then I'm spending my money if I'm doing this.
Yes. But if you go on a date with your money, now we can say, okay, let's get intimate. Let's talk about when I want you to move forward for me and when I want you to stay in my pocket. Let's talk about what kinds of things would make you money. Because if you talk to your money, you start to get an idea of how money would feel or what money would want, right? The whole concept of money being currency or flowing. If you're hoarding your money, money doesn't like that. Imagine if someone got you and then they put you in a closet. Like, oh, you're so awesome. Let's put you in the closet. Like, don't go anywhere. And now they're looking at you like, are you still there? Are you still there? Are you okay? Are you okay? And it would get annoying. And if you start to personalize and humanize the concept of money, that it is an entity that wants to serve you. What is money, right? What is money? Let's talk about getting intimate with our money. What does that mean? Well, if I do a work and service for you and you pay me, then what I've done is I've put my energy into the world for you, not for me, not to build up my own thing, but to build something for you. You offer me money for that. We have an exchange. You paid me money. That is now storing the value that I provided to you. So I didn't need something in return at the moment, right? We used to barter, we call it, and trade. Maybe I didn't need your service at that moment. So you pay me in money. That's all money was ever made for. And so now I'm holding my energy that I put into the world. I'm now holding it. Well, isn't energy palpable? Isn't it real? So if that's true, then I'm holding this energy. What does that energy want from me? It wants to be used wisely. So you've heard there's a big movement now in the markets. People are saying you don't get rich by saving, and that's triggering a lot of people. But we've been taught to save our whole lives. What do you mean you don't get rich by saving? So let's think about the value of $1 right now. We don't have to have finance or economics to understand that if I hold $1 for 10 years, it's going to buy me less in 10 years than it would buy me today. People understand that basic of inflation. By the way, that's inflation and you already know that. So good job. Stop saying you don't know about money because at the end of the day, we know these things. It's just not been put together in the proper language. And so we understand that energy that I'm holding either will dissipate and run out of energy eventually over a long period of time, or I can put it to work and it can generate more. So when we say you can't save your way to being wealthy, that's true, because if you just save, the value erodes. But if you set money aside, which we often call savings, then we put it to work. What do we call it when we put money to work? Investing. So we invest. That just means we put our money to work in some kind of way so that it can make more. In fact, one of my favorite books, it's called The Richest Man in Babylon. It's got some old school language, but it's really fascinating and very simple read. And one of the first principles is you must pay yourself first. Everyone hears that, but what does that mean? That means that's your savings. Whenever you get paid, you take apart the part that's for you, for your goals, your future, whatever you're doing. And that's the saving part. But then if you put it to work, the way he refers to it in the book, it's like you take your gold and you put it in, and it starts to get to work for you, and it has babies. And those babies are more coins, maybe silver coins. And those silver coins get to work, and they grow up and they make gold coins too. And the gold coins are making gold coins, and the silver coins are making brass coins. And before you know it, those two little coins you put together had a whole family of coins. Now, what does that mean in terms of finance? That means that we put the money in a place where it can be working or creating value in the world and cause growth. In other words, I don't need all this money to live today because I've managed my way into spending less than I earn, which is a simple formula, but the application is not so simple.
Let's repeat that.
Spending
less than we earn.
Spending less than we earn.
I'm going to tell a little story on that. So my parents, when they were younger and married, and they did not have a lot of money, and it was the time when my dad would get his check and he would go to the bank and cash it and come home with the cash. And my mother had a Filofax, and this one said electric bill, and this one said gas bill, and this one said mortgage, and they would put the cash in there, and then you'd have to actually take the cash to the electric company and pay your bill in person. So what happened was they had a fire and the stove got ruined. No. And the insurance company said they were giving the money for a new stove. And my parents went and bought that new stove before they had the money. And the insurance company bailed out and didn't send them the money. And that was the last time that my parents ever bought something before they had the money to buy it. So I was raised with that principle, is that you don't buy what you can't afford. Now, the credit card culture has made everyone think that they can buy anything. Yes. And they just put it on a credit card. But I don't know how many people realize how much they're paying in interest on a credit card and how much they're wasting. So I know in today's world, we're so used to instant gratification and getting the thing as soon as we want it. But we have to adapt the principles of, if you don't have the money for it, you probably should not have it.
Right. And there's a way to determine whether it's a good investment or a bad investment before you do that. That's part of that decision-making process. Okay, will this do one of two things? Will this thing I'm buying, like if you're going to use, that means we're using credit, right? To be clear, if we're buying something we can't yet afford, then we're using credit somehow. And so if we're going to use credit, then we need one of two things to happen. Either this thing I'm buying is going to appreciate beyond the value of the debt that I've used, so therefore I'm gaining by choosing to use someone else's money right now, or this thing will cause income that more than pays for the debt and will continue to pay after the debt is paid. So if it does one of those two things, then you're using credit for what it was really intended. Anything else, that's you saying, hi, future self, you don't need this money like I do, so I'm going to use it now. Good luck figuring out how to pay for it later.
Right.
By the way, when you have what we have for living plus now the debt. And so people get into that spiral. And again, that shame wave comes, and it's hard to get out of the spiral when you won't look at it. And if we won't look at it, then we can't fix it. And it's all okay because the culture that we have tells us to do that. Like, you don't have to shame yourself if you made those mistakes. You just have to stop it sometime.
Right.
And you get to say, enough is enough. I want to love my future self. So I have a practice, and it's not just a monetary practice. This is a general practice. I will do things that are hard or not fun, and I do them for future Crystal. I started the gym 4 months ago consistently again. I hadn't done that in many, many years at a consistent level. And I hired a trainer because it's important to me. It became the priority. I'm turning 50 this year, and I didn't want to cross that threshold with an okay body that could kind of do okay. I want to cross that threshold with, I am going to be climbing mountains when I'm 70. So when I started that gym, it was so hard at first. And every time I would go, and like, I don't want to, I would crawl my way sometimes out of the gym, like, well, I hope you enjoy this 70-year-old Crystal. But there is a mantra. I'm doing this for you, 70-year-old Crystal. I'm not doing this for me today. So it doesn't matter that it's hard because I'm doing it for her. And if we can adopt that with our money, like this part I'm putting to work for future me. This part I'm putting to work for that part of my future. And I really love when we give real jobs to the money rather than I'm saving in a general or a broad sense. We say, ooh, this money is going to go to work to buy me a car in the future. This money is going to go to work to help me get a house in the future. This money is going to go to work to pay me so I can stop working one day. And if you don't want to stop working, then you can choose something else, like, so I can have a better life, or I can have more choices, or I can work when I want to. And money is here to serve me in the ability to continue to feel satisfied and live a good life. But the future self, she would like us, he would like us to go ahead and consider that once in a while when we make a spending choice. Hey, what about me?
That's so interesting because I feel sometimes people are so YOLO in the present, they don't want to think about the future. But I love that think about the future self. And you know what? I'm not going to buy those sneakers because I'm going to put that money towards my gym membership, because that not only serves my future self, it serves my current self. And then, okay, so I have older sneakers at the gym, but my goodness, I'm going to feel much better.
Yes.
I'm going to look much better, and I'm going to be that person in the future as well. And you know what? I'll get the sneakers in the future.
If we just keep choosing to put a blind eye or to swipe anyway, whether we can afford it or not, we know that we're setting up something we have to solve in the future, which is it's a financial obesity in a way, you know?
Yeah.
It's like, I didn't have self-control and therefore I'm here. But if you don't know what to do to get control, then you can't do it. So the first step, it really is saying, it's okay that I have anxiety. The second step, let me learn what I'm not yet knowing. And then you can say, okay, now how do I get that practice in place? What I found is by having a mission or a vision that's specific. So when I was a new college professor and I got divorced and all the things, and then just to live, I ran up some debt because I was trying to transition and live. I had about $36,000 in unsecured debt. That just means that it was like credit cards or revolving accounts. And I was a professor, a new professor, and my first salary was $42,000. Now, I signed a contract that when I finished my doctorate a year later, I got a $10,000 raise. But at the time, I had this baby salary. Like, even 52 was like, I look back to that, that's so cute. But it was my early season as a professor. In that 1 year, making $42,000 as my base salary, I paid off the $36,000 in debt. Now, how does someone do that?
And live and pay rent
and I had
groceries,
2 children, and I drove 2 hours to work each way.
Wait, well, how did you do this?
So how I did that was, number one, I got lots of extra sources of income. I used to call it pimping out my degree, but I had several schools contacting me. We were in kind of a bubble in education at the time. Money was everywhere from the government for anyone who wanted to go to school. So every university on the planet was looking for more professors. So I got a few extra gigs. I think there was a point where I worked for 7 schools.
Wow. You would just teach like a workshop or just a one-off?
I was an adjunct professor.
An adjunct professor.
Yeah. So I was getting like a little baby paycheck out of going and, teaching students and giving them grade feedback and all of that. And I did that times 7. Now I worked a lot. But I was newly divorced, and 1 week I would have my children and the other week I did not. So those weeks I just worked until 2:00 in the morning, got up and did it again the next day. And I made it work. But I didn't do it because I was so cool and noble. I did it because I put in systems. So that's the next part. You've got to put systems in place so that it's not like every single day you have to make the decision. You asked me about decision fatigue before we started.
Yeah.
Decision fatigue is when you become no longer capable of making good choices because you've exhausted your ability to weigh options and make choices. We know famous leaders who wear the same thing every day because they want to remove some of that decision fatigue.
The same food every day.
Eat the same food.
I know a lot of people like that.
There are people who go as far as their whole life looks the same every day so they can really focus on those big decisions. I haven't quite gotten there, but I've gotten to some places where I just don't choose about certain things. It's already a choice made. And that is, by the way, how I release weight. When it's time to release weight, it's the same discipline that I use for money. And that is, here's my new goal. I'm going there. Anything that is going to derail, deter, or slow down my walk to that goal is a no. Period. Like, period.
Discipline.
This is not, and it doesn't become discipline at that way. It becomes rules. This is the rules. Like, I would never, I don't even drink, but if I was a drinker, I wouldn't get drunk and then go try to teach students. That wouldn't be appropriate, and that would not be okay. So that's just a no. People have, but that's a no for me. I would never choose that, right? So when I choose, I'm going there, these are the foods, these are the behaviors that get me to where I'm going, then those are the only behaviors on the table. And then anything else, if I look at that behavior, it's already a no. So people will say, oh, I don't want to eat dessert in front of you. I know you're slimming down. Eat your dessert. I'm fine because I already made a choice. This is not a choice in this particular moment to do that because I already made that choice. So when I externalize back to my future self,
Yeah.
I do it for her. And now every time I don't, I imagine, oh, I'm letting her down. And that gives me that same external feeling of as if I was letting you down. And I'm actually doing that with some financial things in my own life right now because I have new goals, new levels of growth, new directions I want to take with my business, and I want to hire people. And so I'm like, okay, if I'm going to hire people, then I can't go out and spend every dime that I want to spend right now, even though I can afford it, but I can't afford it and be that. So it's about prioritization. Although I never use the word I can't afford it, period. That phrase is out. It's how can I afford it? Or that's not a priority.
That's not a priority. Oh, I love that's not a priority. Yes.
It's not a priority.
It's not a priority. When it comes to our money and material goods, what's a priority? And I am that way too. Even like with grocery shopping, I was looking for steaks. And I was like, okay, the filet mignon is $35 a pound. The strip steak or whatever it was, a sirloin, was like $18 a pound. Mm-hmm. Do I need a filet mignon? I want a steak. Why can I not have a strip steak and save myself $15 for a steak? You know, and then I make that decision. And I feel for me, sometimes the decisions I make, because I don't push myself into the instant gratification, I can discern if I really need something or not.
And sometimes you will. Sometimes you're going to have the filet. Yeah. Sometimes you're going to buy the nicer things. But if you go by practice, you want to ask and weigh yourself, how big of a deal is this to me? What I did, I actually wrote a book after doing that diet, Slim Down with My Money, to get rid of the credit cards. It's called The Money Makeover. Simple book, just goes through the process of how did you get in debt in the first place? That's the first step in knowing how to get out of debt. It's like, well, how did I get here? So I can change that behavior. Because some people were chasing a dream. Well, they weren't overspending, they were chasing a dream and it didn't work. So now they have debt. Or some people were chasing someone else's dream and oops, so if you can acknowledge how you got there, then you can start corrective behavior. But for me, once I got a few extra income sources, I still had to not spend up to those income sources. So I would go shopping on purpose just to go through the mall but this is, mind you, after I got used to it, because at first it was hard. But then I loved this game so much that I would go shopping just to play the game. And I would find things I love and want. And I would say, ooh, this $120 jacket. I love this. Ooh, and I would try it on or whatever. And then I would be like, do I want this jacket more or do I want to be out of debt? Out of debt. And then I would happily put it on the thing.
Beautiful.
And I never didn't get to have something. I got to have anything I wanted. And a couple of times I was going to an interview or doing something, or maybe I think once I was speaking on stage. And I tried it on and I was like, yeah, this is going to make that difference and that factorial difference for me, that I'm going to feel better on that stage and probably get more clients or get more money. Or in that case, just feel it's worth. I had it down. I like spreadsheets. So I had it down to how many more days of being in debt do I have to have if I spend this versus pay it? Because I had the interest rates calculated in the formulas. You don't have to go that far. But I liked that game. Like, ooh, I can buy this or I can spend 13 extra days getting out of debt.
Let's get into the book a little bit, because it's like you knew what I was going to ask. I was going to ask you, what about people who are already in debt? Yeah. How can you help them start to get control and get out of debt? Because I feel there's got to be a lot of people out there at this point, they're already there.
Yes.
And then they get scared and they don't know what to do. And that debt is going to continue to grow instead of going down?
Yes. Well, first is understanding anytime you have debt, that's you paying an interest rate. That means you are the investment for someone else. They've given their money to you and now you're paying them back. So it's like an anti-investment. Every interest rate we pay is like paying against our own investment strategy. So if you have investments making 8% interest, woo, good job. Even if you're in the S&P, it's historically doing around 10 to 11%. Let's say you're in the S&P index and you're getting 10%. You feel great about that return, except over here, you're paying 18% to your credit card. You're actually losing money still.
Yeah.
So getting real, getting really real with what is it costing me to be in debt? You can start there. And then you start to look at where's the gap. So the first thing you can do is stop all leaks. This is the first practice that I use with anyone who comes to me for help with money. Let's look at where it's leaking. Because if you pour money in and it's got leaks, you're never going to get a full bucket. So where do we have leaks? Leaks are things that don't bring us value and we didn't even enjoy it. So I have them take their bank statements, and I recommend everyone do this. Literally, this is my, everybody take this free information. Please try this. Print your bank statements, take a pink highlighter, and everything that's let's start with green because this feels a little more palatable. You start with green.
Wait, my bank, my checking account, and my credit card?
You're spending. Everything you're spending.
Okay, so that would definitely be the credit card and the checking account,
yes.
Because you got to remember Zelle, Venmo, all those things that you're using, your bank card. Maybe you're a person that uses a debit card and you'll have it all tracked within your checking account. But if you are paying bills automatically out of your checking account, but yet you using your credit card for purchases, both of things
these are
need to be looked at because you're spending from
anywhere and everywhere
both.
You're spending.
Okay.
In fact, I can tell you by looking at 6 months of someone's statements what they value.
Really?
It's very telling. So I'm not telling you have to show everybody your statements, but it can be revealing. So you take your statements, you highlight everything that's like, yes, this is either needed, like my home. I need to have a home.
Yeah.
I need to have food. So highlight everything in green. That's a full yes. Like, yes, this adds value. It's great. It's making my life better.
Or maybe it's you start with these are the necessities.
It could be necessities.
My gas bill, my electric bill, my rent, my insurance.
Yes.
Because you're going to have things that you can't change.
Everything that's like, this is set. There's nothing I can really change about this. Unless I completely change my lifestyle, that's a different conversation. Okay. It's like, okay, I'm going to downgrade my house or something. But in terms of this is what it costs me to live, everything goes in green because you wouldn't give that up. You wouldn't go without food for a month, for example. The next category is everything that isn't a necessity, but it genuinely adds value to your life. Maybe you have a gym membership. No, you don't have to have a gym membership. You could go for a walk outside. You could do the outside stuff. You could do free stuff. But you know that you use it and it adds value. So that goes in yellow. It's like, okay, this adds value. And then everything that didn't add value and you don't even really feel great about it now, like, okay, there's nothing exciting that I did that. It was just a dinner or just a thing that you put that in the pink highlighter. Pink because we don't have red, right? And so then you go back to your statements and all you do is say, okay, do I have more pink or do I have more green? If you have more green, you're already doing great. If you have more pink, then we want to start looking at where can I, in the decision moment, start asking myself, would this be green, yellow, or pink? So when you're swiping, it gives you that quick color coding and you can go, this is pink, but whatever. You can say that and acknowledge it. And you'll sometimes start going, this is pink. You know what? You can keep this. Yeah. And that's an easy way to prioritize. So you stop the leaks. But once you've stopped the leaks, then we have to start looking at, okay, now that I'm gaining some excess flow of cash, how do I apply it? And so then you want to think about, well, what is costing me the most growth of my money first? What would that be? Your highest interest rate. So you start looking at everything that has a high interest rate and any extra money that you have that you want to use toward debt reduction. Let's say you found in your budget by just doing the pink $300. Okay, cool. Now we're going to take that $300, apply it all to that highest interest rate. And some people will even go get a second job if the debt is heavy, or they'll look for another source of income so they can double down and make it $1,000 a month or whatever. But your speed is not the point. The moving in the right direction is the point. So we take the $300, we apply it to the highest interest rate. Let's say that was $120. Well, now that we're paying $420 on it every month, boom, within 6 months, that's paid off. Now we take that whole 420 and we pay it on the next. Now the snowball method that's popular that people will talk about is more about putting it on the smallest balance first so that the balances pay off quicker.
Yeah.
But I like to put it on the highest interest rate because
it's going to bring it come down.
Your actual wealth. It's not about which account is paid off, but where are we really growing wealth? And so we're saving your wealth by eliminating that higher rate. So we call this the avalanche method. And so then you take the next one, and now that $100, and when that one's paid off, you have $520 to pay on the next. Before you know it, you're paying $1,200 a month towards your debt. I recommend that you do that until you reach a point where your interest rates are lower than any investments you're making. So for example, would you pay off your house quickly? Would you keep going until you paid off your house? I don't think so. Not for most people.
Because the rate on the house might be 4%, but your money is earning 8%.
Exactly. So let the bank keep using the bank's money for your home. Now, there are circumstances where that's not true. So this is not across the board. But for most people, you would not pay off your home at that point. You would start your investments and then continue your regular house payments. We talk about consolidating. People will use their home.
Debt consolidation.
Yeah, you can take the equity in your home and you can consolidate, get that lower rate right away, and then you could start investing. That could be another option. The thing you have to be aware of with consolidating, if you don't stop the behavior first, once you consolidate, you just opened up all this borrowing capacity. So it could be very easy to run the credit cards back up. And now you've got a higher mortgage loan and the debt. So you've got to be a person who can be on top of that and make the decision once and for all. Don't let it slip back in, but then every now and then, how am I doing against my decision? Because you're going to still mess up. I still, after all these years and doing it and getting out of debt twice now that I've pulled myself out of debt, I still sometimes slip back into patterns and behaviors and I'll deal with it tomorrow's, which is how most debt happens, right? And so I do a little cleanup. About once a quarter, I'll sit back with my numbers again and say, okay, how am I doing? Where's the pink? And sometimes the pink creeps in pretty heavily. I recently had about almost $3,000 of spending that I did. That was just, I got into an office and that, I'm almost 50. So they start talking about your skin and don't you want to do this for your skin? Don't you want to do that for your skin? Before you know it, I've walked out with $1,200 worth of product.
Yeah.
So sometimes it happens. When that happens, you get to forgive yourself. I'm still human and I did work for the money and I had every right to choose to pay for those things in that moment. Next time, I'm not going to let them get me in that office and make those choices because I know now, I was like, oh, I did it again, right? Because this is not the first time. But now I framed it as, oh, you're going in there and you're letting their need for you be stronger than your decisions that you made before you walked in the door. Not happening again. So you get to continually adjust and not ever expect yourself to be perfect, but do your best.
What's coming up for me in that conversation is emotional spending.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah, emotional 100%. Spending. And that's something where we have to do the inner work to see the why in that emotion. It's not about the spending. It's actually about the emotion.
Right.
Yeah.
Most spending that's not in the plan
yeah.
has to do with emotions and a moment. Now, sometimes really great things happen. I keep an opportunity fund. That's just money on deck in case something really cool comes up that I wasn't thinking about and it needs cash. Lots of people keep an emergency fund, but I feel like that's inviting emergencies. It's the same idea. I just frame it
different
as opportunity.
Language. Yeah.
I like to give it the language of opportunity because then I feel great about doing it.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is not an emergency. Like, oh, I'm going to keep that in case something goes wrong. No. I keep this in case something goes right, including something happens to something that I need to fix. And I have the opportunity to do that without going into debt.
Oh, I love this. Yeah. I'm going to change that when I give me a $20 as an emergency money. It's not an emergency. It's an opportunity. Yeah.
When I give exams in schools, I call them opportunities because again, the framing, everything is about how we look at it and how we frame it. And in education, we have this idea that you start and you do an assignment and now you have 100%. And then you do another assignment and you still kept your 100%. But then at some point, maybe you messed up a little bit and now you're down to 92%. So you're always fighting to keep your perfection. And if we could rewire that and instead education had when you do this assignment, you earn 10 points. When you do this one, you earn 4 more points. When you do and you're earning up to your 100 points, then it would be more motivating because you don't go up and down, up and down.
Right.
And I think if we can look at our money the same way,
Yeah.
like every time you make a good choice, yay, celebrate. Now don't celebrate by buying things, just like you don't celebrate with cake when you lost your weight goal, but you find a way to make that meaningful. I will even call my friends and say, oh my God, I did this. Da, 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 da. And it's like, they don't care, but they love me. So they care that I'm happy. And I will share those things and make sure you take your wins when you do something good.
Beautiful. You mentioned before, and I want to come back to the investing. When you start to have money, what do people do? Because I think that's where there's a lot of women, especially, they'll ask me, what do I do with my money? Now, I have financial planners, but the financial planners they want big money people. So people that are just starting to earn a little bit of money to invest, I can't send them that way. What do we do when we start to now get ahead and have that quote unquote savings or that money for the future self? You've mentioned a couple times investing it.
Mm-hmm. I'm a big fan of having a fiduciary or someone in your court that is not earning commission on your investments. I used to carry the CFP, Certified Financial Planner license. Yeah. I don't use it enough, so I let that go. It's kind of an expensive one to keep. Again, priorities, right? Yeah. However, if someone is going to work with your money and advise you on a regular basis, you want to look for someone who has studied enough like that, whether it's a CFP or they've been in the industry for a while, and get them to guide and advise you. Because rather than just picking an advisor, hey, invest my money, well, they're going to charge you 1% whether they perform or not. Learn a little bit about it and there's so much available to do your own investing. Now, if you don't feel comfortable at all with that, that's another conversation. But most people can choose, and there's really only one goal in investing. Buy low, sell high. That's what investing is. There's also a dividend, which pays income. I like income investing. So you put the money in and then you start getting paid income. Yeah. Because at the end of the day, I don't need a certain amount of cash. I need a certain amount of money flowing to me all the time, right? To get there. The reason we get to X number of cash is to get the cash flow. There's a very simple formula. Maybe we can, if anyone's asking for it, they can message me and I can send them some notes or something. But if you want to know if you have enough money, you can take the amount of income you need in a year, divide it by the current rate is 0.04, which is about what a money market account could do for you. So we know it's safe. And that's the amount of cash you need to be able to have that cash flow every year without running out of money. So that's called a perpetuity formula. But you take, like, say you want $100,000 a year, you would divide that by the 0.04, and that tells you what you need exactly in order to.
So that's opening a money market account.
I use the example of a money market.
But you can put money in that every month. Like if you don't have a 401k, this is like essentially your own 401k, right? Like your money market is where the money's being invested. You can either have someone pick where it gets invested, or you can do that yourself, right? And you're saying there's dividend paying ones where you'll get certain interest every month, or it'll compound and build.
Yes. So compounding is the goal. So a couple of things to clarify on that. When you get a money market account, that's you and the bank. And it's like a savings account, but it earns more. So there's no real extra. The bank is surely investing it. They're investing it by giving out loans and getting the money in action, working. They pay you a portion of that, which is just under 4% right now is the going rate for that. But it's considered a safe investment. It's still covered by FDIC. So if you have more than $250,000, you want to think about splitting that up, or, the average person who has that amount of money, it's only protected or insured up to $250,000. Yeah. Now, if you get to certain higher levels, you get into private client status, and in that case, they put you in other types of funds. But a money market account, anyone can start that. Now, different than a money market fund, which is an investment. Because it's in a fund, now it's not FDIC protected. So you would do that.
Someone is managing that fund.
Someone would be managing that fund. The money market account is just with the bank.
Okay.
And the bank goes out.
Just in a way, it's a higher interest.
It's like a higher interest
earning because they're actually using the money. Where your savings, your checking, they're not supposedly using that money.
In theory.
In theory.
That's based on the reserve requirement, which we were at 0 for a while, which means the banks have to hold nothing of our money. That was during COVID. I think it's back up to something now, but I haven't looked at that recently. The money market is an easy, simple way that's going to get you that 3 to 4% interest. You can invest in index funds. Index funds are like an S&P 500 index is 500 companies, small capital companies. That just means not your big Apples and that of the world, but next level down. And there are 500 companies within it, and they move the needle over time. And that index means the culmination of all of that. We are invested based on the growth of the whole portfolio. It's like automatically diversifying within stocks.
Right.
But having all stocks even diversified in an index is not the same as diversification. When you hear that word, diversification means I have multiple types of investments. So you might put some in a money market account. That's your cash, right? You can get to it quickly. You don't have to sell anything. You just use your money. The index funds would be you invest it usually through a platform. These days you can have a platform that you have right in your phone on an app, and you're invested in those index funds. You can also invest directly in stocks. So that would be buying AT&T or Apple or whatever. And those are the companies that usually will pay dividends. So if you buy right now NVIDIA, everybody's like, oh, NVIDIA. We don't know what they're going to do. But what we know is the goal for that, having that stock, is for the value of the stock to grow. So if it's worth $10 now, we want it to be worth $20 in the future. That's one type of growth. Another would be, for example, if you've invested in Apple, Apple isn't expecting massive growth anymore. They already achieved it. If I put $100,000 in Apple today and never touched it, it's still going to keep paying me a dividend. Apple doesn't need me to do anything for them to send that dividend.
And that's the passive income.
That's the passive. Yeah.
I think a lot of people need to understand that more, because I hear that all the time. I want to make passive income and I want to make passive income. So I'm going to actually start correcting people and asking them, is it really passive? Because if it's passive, you don't need to do anything for it to happen. Or is it residual, where you got to work a little bit to get it? Even though it seems passive because you created it already, and it's a course, it's a book. Would a book, selling your book, be passive income?
Who's going to sell the book?
It's got to be put somewhere,
somehow people have to see this book. So if you stop your Facebook ads, nobody sees it anymore. If you don't show up and speak, no one sees it anymore. So really, like, the only thing that can be passive is if you can put your money in and walk away. Some real estate investments can be passive, especially with REITs, real estate investment trusts. So you put your money in, other people are doing all the things, and you sit back and the money comes to you.
Okay. I love to throw bios and whatnot into AI and see what little questions they've generated. Let's see if there's anything here that we want to cover.
And while she's doing that, AI is your friend. If you're afraid of spreadsheets, you hate numbers, whatever, put it all in AI and let it help you work up a plan. You don't even have to do spreadsheets anymore. In fact, I'm doing that in a class right now, and it's wonderful.
Yeah.
It'll expense out your whole life. What's your dream life look like? This is what it takes to get it. You can work toward that.
What is the biggest mistake people make when facing big life decisions?
Biggest mistake? That's a big question. I would say the biggest mistake people make is thinking everything's permanent. This is one decision, one time, and it's changing my whole life. No, you get to make a new choice, and a new choice, and a new choice.
Why do smart people still make bad decisions?
Because we're human, because we have desires, wants, needs, because the world is messy, and because we're living a robust, full life in it. The people who don't make very many mistakes, it's because their life looks like yesterday and the yesterday before that. So when you're doing new things and you're smart, you're going to mess up sometimes. I actually prefer mistakes.
Yeah, we're all so afraid of making mistakes.
I reward students for making mistakes because they tried. I used to think I was going to launch a whole university, and I created the mascot for it because I'm a creator and I like to do that. And the mascot's name was Ollie Oops. He was a green octopus named Ollie Oops. It was for athletes, and so Ollie Oop liked the basketball ton. But also he loves making mistakes, and that's how he learns. And so he encourages students to go out, try new things, make mistakes, and see what you can learn from them.
I love this. All right, one final question. You tell a story about the Wright brothers, right? So what does this story teach us about leadership and breakthrough thinking? Or do you want to just share the story of how you use the Wright brothers?
I will. Actually, it's not just the Wright brothers, it's the Wright family has evolved out of this. So I have a program, as I mentioned, decision making is my through line, my main lane. And in order to help leaders make decisions, I developed a tool that helps them identify their genius leader archetype. So who are you as a leader, and how do you function? And then who do you get along with well, or who would you work with well? And who do you need a little assistance also to be working with? And in order to explain all of that, I love stories. And I started looking, AI helped me a little bit, like help me come up who does something. And it kept giving me all these generic stories, like the Wright brothers. Everybody knows about flight. That's boring. Except something in me said, let's go deeper. What would happen if I went deeper? And so I went deeper into the story. And what I discovered was the Wright brothers, the inventors, had one archetype. They were the ones who were creating and inventing, they're building things in the world and making them come to effect. But it was their whole family together is why we actually have flight today. Their father was a visionary. He brought them home a little toy helicopter when they were really little that was like made of paper and like a zip line thing. And their mother helped them learn how to fix it when it broke. And so she supported and was loving in that way. They were the inventors. As they started to learn about flight and like, look, we have this cool thing. Their sister was a spokesperson, and she went out and she spoke for them and told everybody, come try flight. Their other brother was a businessman, and the businessman had the acumen to turn this into a business because they needed to get the funding to be able to continue to study flight. How are they going to keep doing it without income? If they're going to, the genius inventors often don't know how to get money. And this is the most interesting part of the family story. And all of this to say that if everyone fills in their lane, then we all win. And finally, the last brother, he was kind of a creepy brother, and he had a hold of an x-ray machine. And he just was kind of like to know what people had in their pockets, and he was kind of nosy. So whenever someone would come to take a flight, he would make them take off their belts, take off their shoes, empty their pocket, and he would x-ray to see what was in their pockets. What does that sound like? An old-fashioned TSA.
Yeah.
So the TSA was literally born with flight.
My God.
The whole concept of like checking people as they go into flight to make sure it's safe, that started with one of the Wright brothers, and not the ones we know. And so I use that story in one of my speeches that really drives home, if you really own who you are, this is how important it is. Imagine all of that happened, but the sister never spoke up. Or imagine the sister spoke up, but when she got there, the brothers had quit trying to innovate. Or what if they didn't know how to run it like a business? So, and so the only little ad lib one was the security guy. But at the same time, that guy did give us the whole concept of, hey, we need to also consider safety when we go. So all of these together forms this whole that made something successful. So when we are, whether it's making decisions about life or what we're going to do, whether it's choosing how we're going to be with our money, one thing we have to understand is we are not all of them. We are one person. We might have many attributes, but we are still one person. And it is okay and expected that you don't know everything and don't get it all right. But that if you just keep stepping forward, that for the information that comes forward as you step forward is going to inform the next and the next and the next. I want to kind of finish that with something that was really impactful for me was when I really, like at the core of my soul, finally understood that everything in my life, including the place I was sitting at the time when I was not so happy about it, and like, why is my life like this? Oh, choices I've made led me to here. That hurt. I spent 4 days in self-loathing. Like, why would you do this to yourself? But finally, thank goodness, it emerged, and I started to see clearly. And I said, but wait a minute. If I made all of the decisions that got me to here, this place I don't want to be, that means I'm only a series of new decisions away from being where I want to be. And that for me was the most impactful piece in my life of saying, hey, I'm one person. I thought of all of these things. And part of it was trying to be all of the people. I thought I could be all of the people. I cannot be all of the people. It turns out I'm kind of shy. I didn't even know this. I was like, wait, I'm shy? I didn't even know, because I've been pushing forward for so many years of my life that I didn't even know I'm shy. Because like, that's not an option to be shy.
Right.
And now I kind of own it. Like, I don't really want to speak up always in a group until I have something to say. And then I'm very bold about it. So just owning and embracing that we're just a simple few decisions away from anything, like anything that we could want. That for me is what that story really drove home and helped me to understand.
Beautiful. Wow. It's accountability, right? It's self accountability and getting out of the victim mode, people. We talk about this on the podcast all the time, right? Self accountability, the choices you make, and the things that happen because of them are because of the choices you make. So it's accepting them,
Yes.
self forgiveness,
Right.
and moving forward. It's not staying stuck because you made a bad decision. It's taking the responsibility and change.
And laugh. Like, oh my gosh, how I laugh at myself so much now, because if you take it all seriously and you were supposed to get it all right the first time, which is what I believe the first 35 years of my life, like maybe even the first 40, like you have to get it right. Boy, that's a lot of tense energy. Like, but as soon as you're like, oh, didn't mean for that to happen. Oops. And you can laugh it off. Then it just disperses all that negativity around it. And then okay, well, I'm human, so I get to make a new choice right now, starting right now. You can start right now, this moment, to make new choices.
The only thing constant
is change.
Yes. All right. Well, thank you, Crystal. Thank you for sharing your wisdom. We'll put everything in the show notes, especially this book, because I really feel like this can help people start that change that's needed in their life around their finances. And don't be afraid. Don't be afraid of money. I personally have that in my DNA, is to fear money. Even when I have money, I still can be afraid of it. So thank you for the lessons that you gave today that I think is going to help me as well, my relationship with money. And we'll be going on a date.
Yes.
Very soon.
Thank you, Susan.
Thank you.